In this video, we're going to show you how to install the harmonic balancer on your Jeep Grand Cherokee located on the front lower portion of your engine. With the vehicle raised and supported on your jack stands, you got to go underneath the driver's side of the vehicle. On the driver's side lower portion of the radiator, you're going to find the drain over here. You want to grab that and turn it counterclockwise. Now have your catch can underneath your drain bucket, because we're going to be draining the engine's antifreeze. Now that the system is pretty much done draining, I'm going to go ahead and close up that drain plug here, turn it clockwise, thread it in all the way, and snug that down. We have our transmission cooler lines on the passenger front side of this engine here. We're going to grab our pliers and I'm going to move our hose clamps back. So I'm going to give these a quick twist to loosen them. Now you want to have a catch can or a drain bucket underneath because transmission fluid will come out. And go ahead and separate these lines. And our hose is stuck on there pretty good. So we're just gonna switch over to our pliers here, pull that back. On the back side of the cooling fan here, we have 3 lines here. We're going to use a 20mm wrench on this line here. I want to break that free. Power sharing fluid is going to come out of these lines here as well as this one here. So you want to go ahead and make sure you have your catch can underneath as well. On our second line in, this is an 18mm. I'm going to go ahead and do the same here. Go ahead and break that one free. Now I want to go ahead and separate the other line here. So we're going to take our hose clamp, pull that down, grab our pliers, pop that on there and give that a little twist. Going to remove our lower radiator hose here. We have the clamp. We're going to use some pliers. Going to loosen that clamp, slide it back. I want to grab that radiator hose and see if we can twist it, and it's stuck on our thermostat housing right there. So we're going to use a pair of pliers and we're going to gently grab that hose and just twist that. We got that broken free now. Now we have our catch can underneath. We have drained some fluid, but there will be some left in this hose. And we're gonna use a medium-sized pry bar on this here, just to try and get that hose to slide back. It is pretty tight. And the angle of it is very limiting to just get your hand up there and twist that off. Once you get that hose pushed back a little bit, and test periodically to find out where that breaking point is where we can get that hose off, and looks like we're there. Get that off just a tiny bit to let this drain without having coolant burst out anywhere. Okay, our lower hose is separated. I'm going to remove our upper radiator hose here. Use some pliers, compress your clamp here, slide it off. We're going to do the same on the radiator side. Now this is a good time to inspect those clamps. If the clamps look like they're rusted or brittle, you definitely want to go ahead and replace these. Pop off that hose, we're going to set that aside. We want to go ahead and remove our grill off the front of the vehicle here. Now we have 1/4" screws holding the top of our grill on. You may have something different. It might be a 10mm or some plastic buttons. Go ahead and remove all of these here. And once you get your hardware or clips, whatever you have on your vehicle removed, set those aside. Now across the bottom of your grill, you should have 3 more anchoring pieces of hardware there. We have 10mm screws across the bottom. Go ahead and remove your grill, set that aside. Let's go ahead and remove our upper intake unit. We're going to start with this hose clamp right here. Flathead screwdriver, loosen the band clamp. And once you have that undone a few threads, let's come on over to the lid right here. You're going to find 4 clips or clamps. You're going to flip up, and that's going to release the locking tabs to 1 in each corner. Once you have those undone, go ahead and grab that lid, lift it up, and we're going to twist this off and separate this. Go ahead and grab that air filter, pull that out and set that aside. Now the lower portion of your air filter box here is normally held in place by a 10mm bolt between the box and your fender. Our particular one is broken here, but you want to go ahead and locate it down here. Remove that bolt, and once you do, you should be able to lift up on the airbox base here. Give that a little twist and work out the whole unit with the air tube right here and set that aside. On our particular vehicle, we have an aftermarket power steering cooler right here. Yours will probably not have this, but it's going to give you direct access to this 10mm bolt right here. This helps secure the driver's side portion of the AC condenser to the radiator. We're going to use our socket and extension, loosen and remove that bolt. Now right here is going to be a rubber air deflector, and there's a plastic push button or push tree right here. We're going to use our trim tool. Just get right behind that. We're just going to pop that out. That's going to allow us to go ahead and pull that down, and that's going to expose a 10mm bolt right here. This secures the radiator in place on the driver's side. Go ahead and use your shallow socket and extension, loosen and remove this bolt. Now on the passenger side here, we have 3 bolts we actually have to remove. There's an 8mm bolt here, there's a 10mm bolt here, and then there is that rubber deflector that we had on the driver's side. Same thing, we have a plastic tree on the side here. We're going to use our trim tool, pop that off, and get that bolt out over there. I'm going to start with our 8mm. Get that upper 10. Now if you want to, you can remove this sensor right here or disconnect that. Ours really isn't bothering us right now, so we're just going to get up behind it, pop that button out. Just get your hand in there and pull that Rubber deflector out of the way. Now this one here, you are going to need a swivel socket to get in there because it's in over and then up against the radiator. On the lower portion of our bumper right here, you can see the AC condenser and it's sitting inside of a clip on our radiator. We want to go ahead and separate these here. Now you're going to have to do the same thing on the passenger side. You're going to push up on that AC condenser and just pull that out and set it in front. Now right behind the AC condenser is your radiator here, and there's a steel beam underneath. Now the radiator itself is sitting on top of rubber pads with pins on them, plastic pins, and they go down into that steel crossmember going all the way across. There's two of these, one on the passenger side, one on the driver's side. I'm going to use a pry bar, and I'm going to go in between here and just gently lift up on that. And do the same thing on the driver's side. That's going to break that free, so we can go ahead and start to pull this up from the top. Now with our radiator lifted up here a little bit out of the support bracket here, that's going to give us a little bit more access to the lower radiator hose clamp here. Now we're going to use a socket with a swivel and some extensions to go ahead and gain access to this hose clamp here. We have our catch can underneath. Catch any more residual coolant that should come out of this radiator. Now I'm just going to use the pry bar and I'm just going to work that hose back. Now on either side of our radiator, you're going to, that rubber air deflector that we had unclipped earlier goes in around our plastic mounting areas here. So we need to go ahead and pull that out and separate that. I'm going to use our pick here to go ahead and pull that out and around. We're going to do the same on the driver's side. Now we have our two power steering lines coming across the top here, and there may be some plastic retainers securing this to the cooling fan assembly. Now I'm going to use a pick and undo the clip on the back side here. That's going to allow that line to pop off. Now both lines are separated. If you want to, you might even be able to pull these up and out. This is just going to allow for more room for you to get that radiator up and out. On the passenger side, upper portion of our radiator, you're going to find an electrical connector right here for the fan assembly. Now this is pressed in using two little retaining buttons. You can grab that and just kind of wiggle that and pop this out. On the back side here are those two little plastic retaining pins there. Now if you rotate this over, you're going to find that red lock tab. I'm going to use a small pocket screwdriver. I want to go ahead and push that over. And once that's unlocked, press down on this little connector tab, separate that, tuck that harness aside. Now the next thing you want to do is on the side of the radiator cap right here, you have your expansion tank or overflow hose. You can use some hose pliers if you want, or just kind of grab that and kind of slide that off like so. Set that aside. On our radiator crossmember here, we have a series of T30 Torx bits. There's going to be 4 of them. Go ahead, loosen and remove those. Now we're going to go ahead and mark our cross member here on both sides of the support, so when we install this here we can line this up perfect. Next we're going to use our 10mm socket, and we're going to come around and remove the 10mm bolts holding the radiator support bracket itself. We want to remove our hood latch assembly from the radiator support bracket here. There are two 13mm nuts. We're going to use our gear wrench. Go ahead and slide that forward. I'm just going to lower that down. Then we have the support brackets on the front here. I want to pull these off of these studs. Now let's grab our support bracket. We're just going to tip that back. We want to slide that back a little bit. Now in your particular vehicle, if you have a transmission cooler line or power steering cooler, you're going to have these ports right here. Now your rubber hose would normally be on these here. Ours was bypassed to a performance component on the front of the vehicle, but you would have rubber hose going here and one to this one here. You want to go ahead and loosen the hose clamps and slide those off and set those aside. Now you're probably going to lose a little bit of fluid onto these here, so you can put a towel or a rag underneath to catch any fluid. Now ours is already disconnected, and what we're going to do is when we pull up our radiator and our fan assembly, we're also going to pull up on these two lines that go around to the front to the cooler. Now the factory cooler is right here. There was a bracket that we had unbolted, and the lines run across the front and around the driver's side of the radiator itself. Now the AC condenser is between here. When we lift up on the radiator, we're going to lift up on our cooler unit itself. I'm going to periodically stop, take a look. We're going to use our 15mm socket on our tensioner here. I want to go ahead and push down on this. Remove our drive belt. Go ahead and release that. Now in the center of our harmonic balancer here is a bolt. It's a 21mm. I want to go ahead, loosen and remove that. Now we're going to show you on the new harmonic balancer how we're going to remove this unit here and details you want to pay attention to. Now around the harmonic balancer there's going to be 3 tabs here, and those are going to be for using our 3-jaw puller. This is a specific tool for this, and there's going to be a rod in the middle that goes through into the crankshaft, and we're going to put this on. These hooks are going to hook on these tabs. You're going to tighten this bolt and it's going to pull the harmonic balancer off. Now right here there's a notch. This is for a keyway. It's very important that when we remove the old harmonic balancer that you pay attention to the keyway and make sure that the key is still in the crankshaft itself. If it's not there and it's not in the harmonic balancer, well, it fell off. You got to go searching for it. If you can't find it, you're going to have to replace it. So let's go ahead and tackle this. Now we're going to use our puller tool here. We have our center pin here. We have grease on the end of it there. We're going to push that in. Now we inserted our push rod here. There's grease on both ends. Now once we have all of the hooks set up on there. We're going to go ahead and tighten that bolt down. You'll feel the harmonic balancer actually release any pressure. Okay, to remove the puller and the pin, set that aside, and then grab that harmonic balancer and pull that away. Now with the harmonic balancer off, now is a prime time to go ahead and replace your crank seal here. You can see ours is damp, it has been leaking. So you want to go ahead and replace this here. Once you have that replaced and we go to install a harmonic balancer, you want to pay attention. Here is the key that I was talking about earlier. And this is a drift key, and that can actually come loose, but most of the time it's just kind of like stuck in there. So when we install our new harmonic balancer, you want to line that up with the notch in our harmonic balancer, slide it into place. We're going to apply a thin coat of grease to the shaft here. Then we're going to take a little bit and we're going to put some on the crankshaft itself. We're going to lower our harmonic balancer down. Here we go. You can feel it lock in because I was just gently rotating the harmonic balancer until you could feel that key drop in, and there it is. And that popped into place. Now you want to take that bolt and apply some anti-seize compound to that there. Install that. And you want to go ahead and run that bolt down. Now we'll snug that down. And you can see the harmonic balancer is going to want to go ahead and crank. At this point here, let's go ahead and switch over to our torque wrench. I'm going to use a small pry bar here and go in between the harmonic balancer and one of the other braces here. And what we're trying to do is just kind of lock that harmonic balancer from rotating. There we go. Let's go ahead and install our belt. Make sure your belt is fully seated on all of your other pulleys where they're supposed to be. Before installing your radiator and your cooling fan assembly, you want to go ahead and get your hood release cable out of the way. I'm just going to feed this down through and pull this back up into the fender area. That's going to keep the side of the radiator from coming in contact with that and causing an issue with me trying to drop that down inside. On the passenger side here, we have our AC line, and we're going to go ahead and release or remove this connector right here. There's a little red lock tab. Push up on that tab, push down, and we're going to remove that there and set that aside. That's going to give us just that little extra room to go ahead and squeeze those components by. Now, before we drop this in, I went in and I put some tape on the side of our radiator holding the rubber air deflector in the position here, so we can go ahead and lower this down. Let me get this in position and bring our transmission lines down. Slide our cooler down in front here. I'm just gonna watch, slowly slide things down. Go ahead and line up the driver's side. All right, and just gently wiggle that down. It will slide down in a position. You're just gonna do this slowly on both sides. There we go, get our cooler down in a position. There we go. Now, there's a couple things we want to do at the lower portion of our radiator. We want to go ahead and get our AC condenser fit into the tabs on the radiator. But first, we're going to go ahead and push our radiator or adjust our radiator so that the rubber stoppers fit into the cross member. So let's go ahead and grab that radiator. And we're just going to position that. We can actually pull that or move that around a little bit. All right, we have that driver's side, or the passenger side set in over here. We can go ahead and get that AC condenser lower down into this mounting tab here. Now I'm just going to use a flathead screwdriver just to open up this tab just a tiny bit and slide the condenser down. You can see that falling into place. Now once it's in there, we're going to go up top and push that down the rest of the way. We're going to do the same thing on the driver's side. Now we're going to install our 2 long bolts to secure the radiator. Go ahead and get that bolt started, a couple threads. Then we're going to go ahead and do the same for the other side. Now that we have the bolt in on our passenger side, let's go ahead and snug that down. Tuck our air dam back over for now. Let's go ahead and tighten down the driver's side. Install the bolt for your cooler. We have the 10mm bolt up top. Then we have the 8mm on the bottom. Push our condenser down into position a little bit better. We have our rubber air dam. We have the plastic push pin. We're going to line that up. Push that into place. Let's go ahead and get that done on the driver's side. Now, if your vehicle is equipped with the cooler, go ahead and install your cooler lines at this point. Install the bolt for the AC condenser and cooler bracket. On the passenger side, we're going to hook up that AC switch. So line up that connector. This goes onto the AC line. Line that up. Push it down and on. You're going to feel it and hear it click in. And then on the top of it is a red lock. Push that down, you're going to hear that snap into place. You want to connect the fan connector here, line that up. You're going to hear it click, press that lock, red lock tab over, and we'll go ahead and line that up and get that pressed into its retaining buttons here. Before feeding our lines down to the bottom for the pump there, you want to go ahead and replace the rubber O-rings that are on both of these lines here. You're just going to peel off the old one, install the new one. And once you do that, we'll go ahead and pass our lines down. We're going to install our expansion tank tube. And just for now, we're going to throw on our radiator cap. We know it has to get filled, but we don't want anything to fall down inside that. Now we're going to install our lower radiator hose onto the radiator first. Grab your hose clamp, make sure that the screw side is on the passenger side of the hose. Go ahead and feed that hose onto the radiator. Now let's go ahead and wiggle that hose onto our thermostat housing. Once you get your clamp lined up, lock that into place. Let's go ahead and get our fittings lined up and threaded in. And you want to be super careful with these here. You do not want to cross thread the fittings, so make sure that they start going in nice and easy. Now once you have those threaded in, we'll go ahead and snug those down. You want to make sure those are snug, and then go ahead, give it a quick wipe down. Okay, work that rubber hose on there. And get that clamp positioned. Install your rubber lines here. Now once we have everything installed here, go ahead and use some spray solvent. You're going to spray down your connections here, give everything a wipe down. I want to make sure that this is clean. And then later on, after you start up the vehicle, you want to go ahead and just poke your head underneath and check for any dripping, any leaks, and then just tighten accordingly. And we're going to reach through the front of the grill area here, get our socket and extension onto the hose clamp for the radiator. Using a 1/4-inch ratchet and 8mm shallow socket, you're going to want to go ahead and reach through here and continue to snug down that lower radiator hose. You want to make sure that it's pretty tight. All right. Once you feel comfortable with that, go ahead and move back up top. Put the line into the retainer clip, and then we'll switch or flip that lock tab over. Get our upper radiator hose installed here. Install your air box into place. And once you get your air box or air filter base in place, go ahead and install the securing hardware. I'm going to go and install our radiator cross member here. Now in the center of our support here, this is not bolted in yet, but we want to go ahead and get our center brace lined up here. And then bring our hood release cable or latch up into place. Install the nuts. Now we can go ahead and install our 4 bolts securing this here. Line up our crayon mark here. I'm going to get these 2 started. We'll get the 2 started on the other side. Then we'll do our final adjustment and snug those down. Using our 10mm socket, line up that bracket. Repeat for the passenger side. And this here pretty much lines up itself. And install our gasket. It just has a little trim piece here. It presses onto that pinch weld. Let's go ahead and line up your grill. Now I'm not going to tighten it with the impact gun. Just want to get those started and almost close to tighten. We'll do our final tightening by hand so we don't crack anything. Once you start to feel them bottom out and they snug down a little bit, that should be enough. Across the top here, we're going to finish with our Torx bit screws. I want to get these started. Then we'll come on back and snug them down. Gently snug these down. Do not over tighten them because you can crack the ear for the headlight. And same thing here, just gently snug them down. Install your rear filter. Install the air tube here. Put your lid into place and then put your clips on. Go ahead and secure the band clamp on your intake tube. You're going to locate your power steering reservoir right here on the driver's side front portion of the engine. Remove that cap by turning it counterclockwise. And when you pull this out, you want to go ahead and get yourself rehearsed with this here. We have an H and a C, hot and cold. So right now, we had lost some power steering fluid by performing this job. What we're going to go ahead and do is fill up the power steering pump until it comes up to the cold mark. Grab the appropriate power steering fluid recommended by the manufacturer. And you want to go ahead and fill this slowly, and you're going to do it in small increments. Install that cap, pop it back out and check it. We're still dry, so we're going to continue this process a little at a time until we can get that level. There we go right there. We're at our cold level mark. So we should be good with this here once we start up the vehicle. Now there's something that you always want to double check after the vehicle has been run for a little bit. But at this point here, it's cold, and we're going to close up that lid, turn it counterclockwise until it stops turning, and that is locked. First thing we want to do with our transmission fluid is go ahead and pull that dipstick. We're going to wipe this here. And what we're going to want to do is we have double marks here. We have an add way at the bottom, the last dot. The second dot up is cold. And then up in the hot area here is after the vehicle has been running for a little bit and cycled through the gears. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fill this up to the cold mark right now. So let's find out if we have a base level. Push it all the way in, let it seat, and then pull it back out. And what you want to do is you want to look at the cold dot right here, because our vehicle hasn't been running in a bit, so our transmission fluid is good. Once you run the vehicle, you want to go ahead and double check it. It should be up in this hot area, but we have our fluid in our proper location. If it is below that cold at the lower point at the add, you want to go ahead and add a little bit of transmission fluid and then check that again. At this point, we're good. Put in your dipstick and seat that. Let's go ahead and top off our radiator. So we'll go ahead and remove our cap. Set that aside. And go ahead and set up your funnel. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill up our radiator with the manufacturer specified coolant. Now at this point here, our radiator is filled up to the top of the neck here. We're going to remove our filler here, or you can remove your funnel. Install your radiator cap. Make sure that's fully seated. Now the next thing we want to do is come on over to our expansion tank. Go ahead and lift up on this here. And we're going to use our funnel and fill this up. Now on this side of the expansion tank, there is a mark that says full. So we're going to go ahead and fill up our expansion tank to that full line. Now once you have that expansion tank filled up to the full mark, you can go ahead and remove that funnel and close it up. You now want to go ahead and start up the vehicle, let it warm up. Let it run for 10 to 15 minutes, let that thermostat open, and let that engine take in the coolant as necessary, and then add coolant here to the expansion tank as needed. You can also go for a test drive and do the same thing. You never want to open up the radiator cap while that vehicle is running or hot. You always want to fill through the expansion tank.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.